Hello, everyone, and welcome to River City Plus, the show after the show where we get to have great breakdowns and conversations and reflect on what we did today on River City Live. So today we have a very special guest, author and founder, Jalen Crist. Now, Jalen, on the show today, we just got to barely scratch the surface of some of your tips when it comes to effective communication, but you've actually written an entire book on this and founded a program just to help families and blended families get to that next phase of healthy communication.
Yeah, I mean, this was something that was dear and near to me. I've gone through my own struggles with my own children, and my daughter and I decided to build parent partners. So, give us something to offer, other parents as far as resources are concerned and things to help them along the way as far as communication. So, we just realized that communication is key in anything that you do. And a lot of times with parents, there's a lot of communication breakdown.
Now, something that Rance mentioned was communication has drastically changed since, I would just say y'all's age, even my age, because it was very much because I said so. And it was just kind of follow the letter of the law of the household. But I think what people are finding is that if you have an open window of communication, you can actually take out a lot of that family challenge when it comes to communicating, when it comes to problems. I always like to remind parents, your kids are going to ask questions. Now, do you want them to be confident and trustful in you and comfortable talking to you? Or do you want them to go to the internet? Do you want them to go to a friend at school? You want to have that open door of communication, but it can be hard, especially transitioning from the generation of just do it because I said so to, hey, let's actually talk about why I have the reasoning for what I do. So how did your journey translate into bringing that type of communication into your own household?
Yeah, I mean, that was tough because there was a time period where I didn't do that.
Sure.
And I realized that. And, my daughter's also going through the same issues with her daughter at this time. So age didn't matter at this point.
Right.
And we just realized, again, that there was a breakdown in communication. So, why not figure out a means where we can open up the tunnels of communication to help other parents? Some, feelings and emotions get involved a lot of times. And we stopped communicating. I
Right.
mean, again, that was my
Pride
whole scenario.
gets involved.
Exactly. So the key here is that the goal is our children. It's not you, it's not me, it's the children. So we have to do what's in the best interest of our children.
How do you take the you out of it? Because we get caught up in that. I think whether it's friendships, relationships with your children, romantic relationships, we really get caught up in I
Right.
sometimes. And if I feel disrespected, if I feel like someone is not listening. So how do you move that from I am having these feelings and it's causing anger to I'm experiencing this because of your actions? How do we flow through this together?
I think if we both understand what the primary goal is, and that's our children. Again, when your emotions are involved, you're totally just thinking about yourself and saying, okay, well, I'm going to avoid seeing my child, or the other parent's going to keep the child away from you. But when we, again, look at the main goal, which is our children, and focus on that, then I think that we can overcome those particular challenges. It's not easy, don't get me wrong, because parents won't
Right.
always see eye to eye. But at the end of the day, when we have those differences of opinion, if we have those discussions in private and not in front of our children, then it makes a world of difference.
Ooh, okay. So you brought it up. So I'm gonna dig into this. You mentioned making sure that the common goal is children. And so I have to say, I don't have children, but I have seen friends go through divorces. I've seen my friends be the children of a divorce where they were really used as bargaining chips. And that plays a big part on a child's psyche. So in your experience, in your writing, what is a way to break down that animosity if a divorce didn't go how everybody wanted, if there is animosity there, if there is anger? What is that solutionary to say, listen, I know you and I didn't make it, but what we did make is a wonderful child
Right.
that deserves us to be better. And if you're willing to communicate, but what do you do when the other person isn't?
I think that's tough. Because
That's why I
I know.
asked. I was like, maybe he's figured it out.
A lot of times you will have that situation. I think that patience comes into play.
Whew, where do you buy that?
And prayer. I mean, at this point, you hope that the other party realizes that what's important are our children. I mean, I got into a situation where, it's like I went through a divorce. My children were there, and I felt like I just became a paycheck to them. And I had to have a conversation with them where they would just text me and message me, Dad, can you send me money for this and for that? But they wouldn't call me just to say hi. But
Right.
ultimately, I just had a conversation with the kids and said, hey, I want to be a part of your lives more
Right.
than just sending you money. So let me do that. Call me and say, hey, how you doing? Say, I have this activity going on in school.
Right.
Can you come, see me at this? Like my kids live in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
So I fly up there, go to their track meets.
Wow.
So, I just want to be a part of your life in any way that I can.
And in terms of that former spouse, is there a tool or a way that you've found that can, if there is animosity, ease into that communication? Like, is there an olive branch phrase that you've found or something that you found that can be helpful, just signaling that you're there and you're open to it without challenging them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I've had that conversation with their mom and, just to let her know that I have no ill feelings towards her. And like, again, the main goal for me are the children and
Right.
making sure that they have all that they need and that they're cared for that the way that they should be cared for. So I think, ultimately that, again, we hope that every parent who's not married any longer or going through a divorce, that they can find a bridge and say, hey, okay,
Right.
well, we might not have got along, we may not be friends at this point, but the bottom line is that we still share children together.
Right.
So we have to communicate just based on that. It doesn't have to be a high by, it's just we're
Right.
communicating about our children and we move forward.
Yeah, I mean, you can really take a professional stance towards it, because I think sometimes it's just framing it in your mind so that you don't have that anxiety or those hard feelings, just framing that in your mind. Now, in your book specifically, you're very open, which I appreciate, about the single dad, married dad scenario, and you've gone through a court system
Right.
and you've spoken to people who have gone through this. Now, the reality is we live in a southern state. It's Florida, but we all know it's the South. And so unfortunately, fathers are still having to have a lot of these fights in the court system, and they know they're good fathers, they want equal rights to their children, but they're facing a lot of challenges. So how do you address that in your book so that people can learn and have tools to make that next step better?
I think one thing is, I mean, the laws are changing from state to state. Unfortunately, when you look at
Slowly,
the,
though.
exactly, unfortunately, when you look at the laws, each state views shared custody differently. One thing about Florida, since you mentioned Florida, I think as of October 1st, if a father actually acknowledges paternity at birth, they are granted 50-50 custody. So that should not be a battle going forward. But at the end of the day, those cases that are already out there, for fathers struggling to see their children and spend time with them, all I can say is, don't give up. It's a tough fight with dealing with the family court system, dealing with the legal system. And you can change it one state at a time. So, I'm here in Florida. I'm working on Florida, trying to, make the necessary connections to see if we can start to change laws. I mean, that's where it starts, at changing the law. And then once you change the law, then the family court system has to adjust.
Right. What changes do you want to see in the future?
I would like to see, 50-50 custody.
Absolutely.
I think, honestly, I think there needs to be more investigation in the family court system. But mainly, I would like to see these cases not even get to the family court system. I think that as parents, if we, again, build that communication bridge, whether we like each other or not, then we can keep ourselves out of the family court system. Is it going to happen? I don't know. Is it possible? Yes. I mean, but again, it's going to take time and patience. But it's something that I'm willing to travel.
And so when you are traveling and you're really sharing all of your information, trying to get these changes made, what would you see as an alternative if you had the opportunities to suggest, hey, there can be a solution before this goes to family court? Because really nobody wins at the
Right.
end of the day.
Right.
I've never heard somebody come out of family court and be like, hot dog, that's
Exactly.
got exactly what I
Exactly.
wanted. And they said no one involving in the court system ever.
I think there's one scenario where, I talk about where fathers, if you miss a court date, then automatically they suspend your license or they put you in jail, versus if a mother misses a court date, that doesn't happen, right? This is the thing. I would like to see an amnesty program. So let's just say you have a father who has an arrears and he had no job at the time, which caused him to be in arrears. Why not instate an amnesty program once this man gets a job, to waive his arrears. Not to say that he shouldn't provide for his children. Because I
Absolutely.
feel that every parent should provide for
Of
their
course.
children. But if we had some form of amnesty program in place to say, okay, well, we'll waive this, and the father has a job, and from this point on, he's current with his child support, then I think that would be ideal in this world if something like that could happen.
Because we want to set parents up for success. I mean, at the end of the day, these are parents of children that are setting an example. So if you're immediately criminalizing a father or a mother, depending on the state, depending on the scenario, but here we're talking about fathers. If you're immediately criminalizing a father, you're already putting him at a disadvantage.
Right, right. And then that's the thing. I mean, you put a man in jail, he can no longer provide for his child
Right.
anyway at that point. So what did you prove by doing
I'm
that?
so glad that you shared that with me. I knew about the suspended license. I've known about the passport. I've known about taking away things like that. But then in my head, I'm like, wait, so now the father can't even contribute if the mother needs help, taking the child to school or activities, now we can't try. I don't see how those consequences have any weight on the benefit of the child. They
Yeah.
just seem like pure punishment to me. And I could be wrong. I don't have the education that you do about it, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right. I mean, there's scenarios where you have parents that are on welfare, and if the father's paying child support, that money doesn't even support the child. It goes back to welfare because these parents are on welfare, and a lot of people don't realize that. So, the whole idea behind this is that the money that the father is given, it should be going directly to the children.
Right.
So, we have these welfare to work programs. We can do the same thing for fathers. They don't have any programs like that for fathers. So if we have programs like that for fathers to say, okay, well, we'll help you get a job, we'll put you through schooling or whatever it is that it takes to help you obtain, employment that's going to help you provide for your children.
Sure.
If we have programs like that, I don't know, things might change.
Things might change. Do you think there's a possibility that one day we could also set up an intergovernmental trust system for children with divorced parents, as opposed to you paying, like you said, making sure that money, outside of the welfare system, but if you're paying the other parent or partner child support, ensuring that that money is going towards a child? Like, is there a situation you see where a specific trust or bank account is set up for that child so that it's accessible for those specific needs of the child?
I mean, that would be nice. I don't think that.
He's like, you got real high hopes for America,
Listen,
don't you?
Exactly. That would be nice,
In
but
Jana's world. In Barbie land.
the whole thing comes down to the legal system having to fund that as well, though. So although we're putting money into it, and they're holding on to those funds, at the same time, what is the legal system? What is it going to cost them to have a program like that?
Isn't it ironic that we even have to pay the legal system because it's all tax dollars? And I'm like, didn't I pay for that already? Why am I paying now that I'm in court? Just a thought. Feel the same way about parking.
And that's why I say that the whole goal, the whole purpose should be to avoid family court at all possible, and just kind of work through things ourselves. Even if we have mediation programs in place and say, hey, we'll give you X amount of time to work through this. If not, then of course I understand
Sure.
that there are certain circumstances where family court comes into play. I mean, if there's a violent relationship or
Absolutely.
things like that. But barring any violence or anything or any abuse to our children, we should be able to, have these conversations through a mediation, be able to work through these things through mediation and avoid family court and be able to care for our children.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much again for sharing so much and having such an open conversation with me. I think you're a phenomenal resource and educator for a lot of parents that are having to deal with these situations. Hopefully, all of this ends today and no one ever has to look you up, but unfortunately we know that's not the reality. So if people want to connect with you, if they want to support you, or if they want to learn from you, how can we stay connected?
We have a website, it's parentpartners.info. So you can connect with us there. And we also have our book on there. So don't forget to check that out. But yeah, parentpartners.info. You can reach out to myself or my daughter Milan. She's very active in the program as well. So, and we have a ton of resources and a blog out there. So
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us here on River City Plus. We'll be here tomorrow at 10:15 with even more of a River City deep dive, and we'll see you in the morning on River City Live.